Hi everyone, I'm Heather with Tropica Exotica, and today I'm going to be talking about Kundalini activation through meeting my twin flame. So if you watched my previous discussions, I've talked about the spiritual awakening process, what can happen physical symptoms wise and emotional symptoms, so what to expect. So today I thought I'd go over exactly what happened to me. So first of all, I just have to talk about what exactly is Kundalini. So Kundalini is basically your life force energy, which is stored at the base of your spine. So what happens is this energy, as it unwinds, the energy goes all the way up through the various chakras with the ultimate goal of becoming enlightened. However, what ends up happening most of the time is that most of us have blocks in these chakras. So it starts the process of us having to kind of do our internal work, and then there's a whole bunch of other things that happens. But one thing that you have to understand is this energy, because it can be very disorienting, it can end up actually, creating a lot of distress and emotional problems, and some people can even end up in mental institutions. So it's a very unique energy. And so, when this process happens, there's so many different things that happen, and there's so many different rabbit holes that you can go into. The Kundalini energy and the history and all that other stuff about it, I really did not spend that much time on it. But if you're interested in learning more about it, one website that I did find that was helpful is called Spiritual Awakening Systems 1. And it's by a gentleman that goes by the name of Chrism. And he has a lot of information on there, such as some of the symptoms and stuff like that. So if you want to look more into it, you can definitely go to that website. So what causes Kundalini activation? I think there are a few different ways that Kundalini can be activated. I think it can be activated through something like a car accident, a near-death experience. I think that can rattle the energy loose. I think it can also be activated through different types of spiritual practices such as meditation and yoga. It can also be transmitted through a process called Shaktipat, which is when one awakened individual transfers that, activates it in another person. And then it can also be activated through meeting your twin flame, which is what happened to me. And so you may be asking at this point, who is it that experiences Kundalini? I think that the people that experience Kundalini, that was part of their soul's journey, their blueprint, something that they planned on before they incarnated here. You can have a spiritual awakening process without having your Kundalini activated. I think having your Kundalini activated just makes it, ends up being a more intense spiritual awakening process, and I think it just depends on what that soul wanted to experience. So for me, what happened was I met an individual who I could tell was spiritually awake, and so it was very much a sense of curiosity to me because I had never met anybody that was awake before. And so when I first met them, I had this weird kind of jittery experience in my heart chakra, which I found out later that means that that's a soul recognition. So you may just not be aware that, you meet somebody, but then all of a sudden your soul recognizes them. And so your soul is actually getting excited, like it recognizes another soul, even though you may consciously not remember. And then the other thing about it that was actually kind of funny was that they reminded me of myself. And at the time I did not know of the concept of a twin flame, and so it was just funny that I was thinking they reminded me of myself when I was younger. And the other odd thing about the whole situation was that they had what I called an old soul eye, and this eye, it was like it would get kind of like half black, and I honestly don't know what that was about, but I didn't see that in their eye all the time. And whenever I did see them with that eye in, I would always try to make eye contact with them. and they would never make eye contact with me. And then one day they were sitting across from me, and I could tell the old soul eye was in, and I kept on trying to look at this eye because I just wanted to see what that eye was about. And eventually I heard telepathically, I can see you trying to look into my eye, so here. And then they looked at me. And so I looked into their eye, and I just remember feeling like I wanted to crawl into that eye. I know that sounds weird. I felt like I saw the universe in there. I mean, it's just one of those weird experiences where you're like, wow, this is really amazing. Anyway, so at the time, I did not know what that was about. I did not know that by looking in that eye, I actually triggered a Kundalini activation. So the one person and the one piece of information that I have come across during this whole experience was a video by Magenta Pixie called Soul Recognition. And at the timestamp of about 9:39, she starts talking about the twin flame connection, and she refers to it as when matter meets antimatter. And she kind of talks about that process, but that's the only thing that I've come across that really captures exactly what I experienced. And so if you want to go check that out, I'm just going to flash it up here real quick so you can see. But Magenta Pixie has a whole bunch of really great videos. I encourage you to go check her out. She was one of the first people that I started listening to when my awakening process happened. And so after I looked into the eye, I got home, and I remember sitting in bed, and I just had this really weird sensation like I was magnetically being pulled towards him, even though he wasn't there. So I don't really know how to explain that other than that's the sensation that I felt. Somehow I felt like we were connected energetically, and that lasted for a few weeks, and then I kind of just felt like this energetic release. And again, I really don't know what that's about, but for some reason it felt like we were connected energetically. And then the next thing that started to happen was I experienced what I had later heard referred to as like the champagne bubbles, and that's exactly what it feels like. It's like this weird like little bubbly feeling kind of in your sacral chakra area. And then also at that time my sleep became extremely disrupted. So I remember getting up, and I went into the living room. I was laying on the couch, and all of a sudden I felt like this really strong energy down in my sacral root chakra area unwind and uncoil, and it was very physical sensation. And at the time I did not know what was happening. I thought, am I having spiritual sex? Like, what is going on? Anyway, so then I had like these 3 full body like orgasms happen. And also at this time I remember, like, I know this sounds weird, but I felt like my twin flame's face was like up on the ceiling, like it was large, and I was over on my left hand side, and I don't know what that was about either. And so anyway, when this process happened, it was so unnerving, and I didn't really understand, even though I knew I'd heard about Kundalini. When you have that experience, you're not necessarily thinking back and connecting the dots, and I certainly didn't know that me making eye contact with this individual is what ended up triggering it. But it basically was kind of embarrassing, and so I didn't even write about it in my journal because I was so like freaked out, like I don't know what that was about. So a few of the other things that started to happen was I started to experience this heart chakra activation, so my heart would start pounding. I could just feel it pounding in my chest when I would go to sleep at night. And another thing is I started to experience what felt like you were listening in between radio stations. So it's like I was hearing all this kind of like conversations, kind of like, you know, going on, but you couldn't quite hear what they were saying. And another thing that I experienced that I have not come across either is I started to see these black and white swirling clouds, and it's like they were focused on one point. It was tight, and then as it got further out it would get more diffuse, but they were constantly swirling, swirling, swirling around each other. And I would see this both with my eyes closed and my eyes open. And the only thing that I can think about is that it has to do something with the yin and yang energy. But I have not come across anybody else who's experienced this. I don't know what that is exactly. But anyway, I just wanted to give a brief talk on how my spiritual awakening process happened. So I'm going to do a few videos to talk through what happened next. So in the next video, I'm probably going to talk about what happens when your third eye opens and talk about my personal experiences. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.